Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu-alaikum. Jiayanu, Pakhair-agale, Ni-hao, Chunashumme, Washmale. Ohio Gonzaimas, Guten Morgen, Ola, Boyor, Privyet, Kaifahal, Haleshumachatore, Ahlan Wasalan Marhaba. Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabio, Balli Kare, Hosh Galden, and I was Siren. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in to BTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning, alongside my very well-learned colleague, who happens to be Miss Haja Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. First things first, hello Hajra, how are you doing today?
Assalamu alaikum, thank you so much. So Shahzad was asking me that, how did I know that, he was wearing purple? I really didn't know, maybe, this is some sort of telepathy going on, I don't know. But, I think I'm watching too much of the Stranger Things. So,
and I think I've been watching a lot of Steve Harvey too as well. So I believe that, I might probably be behaving like him too as well, because he takes so long in giving those reactions which people love the most too as well. Something like this or that, or probably just being sarcastic. Yes.
Okay, that's lovely. So did you had the chance to watch Stranger Things? Because it was so popular, I got to know that, the Netflix crashed, when it actually uploaded all its seasons. But it's lovely, how they created a totally new dimension out of this world. And there is a lot of, seasons springing up. They're talking about the other dimension. There's some sort of portal which is opening up. So I think it's lovely that, we have some, out of the box stories coming up like that.
I mean, that's true. But, they have already named it Stranger Things. So what more do you think can be actually intriguing for any viewer to see in it as well? But on the contrary, I think I'm on a very different dimension too as well, where I'm thinking about, whether it is the money which works for us or whether is it us who works for the money too as well. So these days, I think I'm focusing on that, making myself more literate about, the very economics of an individual.
Did you reach the conclusion?
Yes, I've reached the conclusion.
What is it?
So what you really need to do is that you really need to save at least 30% of whatever you earn every month. And then eventually in 6 years, 7 years time, depending on how much you earn, you will have that ample amount of money with which you are actually going to have assets for. And once you start to build your assets, that's the time when the money is going to start working for you too as well. So in the first 6 to 7 years, depending on your figures, how many figures you earn, you really need to save that money. And then once that money is being saved, so you're working for that money. And then eventually when you start to invest on those assets, so there are only 2 assets, no stock markets, no nothing. So I'm going to give away one, and I will leave one to you two as well to research. So one is real estate, The other one, I'm not going to mention over here, but you have to do your own research. So you invest in it, and you make sure that you invest in real estate in a way where, inshallah, in days to come, it will multiply the value of what you have invested in it as well. So that's, make sure that, that the money is working for you. I think I just like saying it too as well. Even though I'm not over there, but I'm trying hard. I'm trying hard to make myself literate about all of that too as well. That eventually, when we might not look this young, and people might not want to see us on TV, that we actually can sit back and then enjoy our lives, right?
That's lovely, that you have a very futuristic sort of approach while planning the things. And it's also lovely, how the way the things are so much rapidly changing, especially when it comes to 21st century. So I don't know, where the innovation or entrepreneurship will take us in the future, that, maybe all our, I don't know, things or the thoughts become obsolete when it comes to the
But
future.
I can give away one thing, and that is that, that these trends are going to change in years to come as well. And so in 2017, I said that, 2019 onwards will be a difficult time. I'm telling you today that for people who will have ample cash with themselves, not in the banks, with themselves, will be the ones who will be able to succeed in near future too as well. So please keep that in mind. The trends are going to change. All right, but now I think it's about time that we talk about what's trending all over the world. First things first, let's take a look inside Pakistan, where obviously we do have a lot of flood affectees. And yes, there was a meeting. Yes.
So Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has directed all the concerned authorities to ensure speedy and effective relief operation in the flood-affected areas of Balochistan. Chairing a meeting in Islamabad to review the flood situation in Balochistan caused by the recent stormy rains, Prime Minister directed to immediately shift affectees stranded in the flood to safer places. Prime Minister further directed to ensure immediate provision of tents, food and clean drinking water to flood victims. And Shehbaz Sharif has also has directed that all the arrangements should be made for the disbursement of flood relief cash, 25,000 rupees per affected family. He warned any negligence in helping flood victims will not be tolerated. I think this is wonderful, how our Prime Minister is continuously showing his presence, especially in the flood-affected regions, and in concern about that, working, with the government departments to ensure that there is, rehabilitation for the flood-affected victims, because I think state is your mother, and it is very important that, you can feel the kindness and the love of that mother, right?
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you very much for explaining it to us as well. But when we come down to floods, obviously that's a very regular phenomenon over here in Pakistan. Almost every year we do kind of go through them or suffer through them too as well. But yes, obviously climate change has played quite a pivotal role in between all of destruction which is going on all over the world. We haven't been really mindful about it, but it's about time that we kind of talk about weather. Because just yesterday, I was actually speaking to my nephew in UK, who was like, hey, bhai Mamu, they call me Mamu, so they were like, it's been 39 degrees over here.
So it's finally, not just me who's calling you Mamu.
Yeah, so the Met Office over here in Pakistan has predicted more rain at scattered places in northeast Balochistan, South Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Upper Sindh, while at isolated places in Kashmir, Upper Punjab and Gilgit-Baltistan during next 24 hours. Don't forget to keep an umbrella, all right? Isolated heavy falls are also likely in northeast Balochistan, South Punjab, Upper Sindh and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa during this period. Met Office said monsoon currents are still penetrating in most central and lower parts of the country. A westerly wave is also affecting western and upper parts of the country. Obviously, that's why we call it a westerly wave.
Yes, that's lovely, and I think, this is one of the manifestation of the climate change, why we are always talking about the climate change, because I think climate change has very adversely affected us, and it has sort of a very disproportionate effect on us when it comes to that, right?
True.
So we saw very erratic weather patterns, and constant rains which were affecting the Balochistan, which is the southern part of the country, and previously it was not the case, but it is becoming the new normal for us.
Exactly.
And our climate change minister, Ms. Sherry Rahman, very aptly put it in the Berlin conference about the climate change, that there is no compensation for such kind of disaster that is affecting a country like Pakistan, and it is very concerning to a nation like Pakistan, because we had minimal or no role at all in producing such kind of man-manufactured catastrophe called climate change.
And I believe that we should actually be a little embarrassed about it too as well, that we really didn't had any industry which could contribute towards at least the economy of the country, not even if the climate change. But I think that this is a topic which we will be covering some other day too as well.
Right.
But today it is very important that we kind of mention that, hey, you know what, we are 75 years old. Only, yes, I think for a nation like Pakistan, 75 years is nothing. We're still progressing, we're moving in the right direction. And it is all because of the fact that, that we have partners, that we have soft diplomacy, that we have people who cherish us, we have states who cherish us, we have countries who cherish us. And yes, obviously, at the same time, Pakistan and some other countries all over the globe have some brotherly relations, which is why today we have picked up on Pakistan and UK season. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined with some amazing guests over here who've been working towards making sure that we culturally integrate, that there's more voices of art being heard too as well. But to actually kind of give it all away, we're very lucky that we've been joined by somebody who actually happens to be in Karachi as of now. But I hope that she's going to listen to me now. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we have been joined by the director, UKPK seasoned British Council from Lahore. She is Miss Maria Afzal. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Walaikum assalam. How are you today?
Absolutely perfect. Thank you very much for joining us. And I still remember whenever I'm on Skype, it's this anticipation that, when will it be time for me to speak to as well? So Maria, thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. But over here from the Untitled Chapter, we're very lucky that we've been joined by the program manager, the Pakistan UK seasoned British Council. She happens to be Miss Yusra Nabil. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. But I'm going to go back to Lahore, in a blink of an eye. Let's do this. Yes, Maria, can you listen to me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Okay, so Maria, first things first. What is Pakistan UK season, and what is it that you guys are doing new in 2022?
Right. So the Pakistan-UK season, we launched it as a bilateral campaign in celebration of the 75th anniversary, and also, most importantly, in celebration of the friendship relationship we have between UK and Pakistan. Some of the core objectives for the campaign is to create opportunities for people between the two countries, nurture new partnerships, and work on themes such as climate, youth engagement, with a very strong focus on women and girls. So the bilateral campaign that we've been running is covering a variety of programs in education, arts, but I guess it's safe to say that at the core of all our programs is co-commission, i.e. working together, UK, Pakistan together. Number two, making sure that the themes resonate with our wider theme of the campaign, which is, I should have said right at the start, new perspectives. So that's what we call the season, Pakistan, UK, new perspectives, because we want to, look at what's coming, looking at our, young demographics in both countries and how we share some global challenges and how can we work together to kind of, capacity build and create opportunities to create new bridges and nurture new conversations. So in a nutshell, that's what the season is about. I hope that answers your question. I can speak in more detail if you'd like.
It definitely does too as well. And I think which is why I'm going to come back to Yusra over here as well. Because Yusra, when we talk about such a collaboration, I think it's beautiful, but we still really need to kind of emphasize more on the objectives and the vision and the impact it's going to have too.
Thank you very much for having me on this show. So the overarching objectives of the Pakistan UK New Perspectives program are to, like Maria said, create lasting partnerships between people in Pakistan and the UK. We're doing this through the medium of arts, culture, heritage, and education. Yep. We want to upskill our young people, and we want to use the arts as a way to respond to some of the most pressing global challenges of our times. The three areas that the season is particularly focusing on are women and girls. So how to create gender equity in Pakistan and of course globally. How to upskill the youth and how to create opportunities for them where they're able to progress and include them in economic development in Pakistan. And the third is environment and sustainability. So we have an expansive program where we're delivering over 10 large-scale interventions. Wow. And I'm going to take you over some of them very quickly if I have the time.
You have all the time.
Thank you. So the one that I feel is very close to my heart is the Gender Ecologies program. And I know you guys started with climate change. So I thought this would be a good fit. So the program works at the intersection of women and climate. Women are one of the worst sufferers of climate change.
That's true.
So what the program does is it uniquely positions women as a powerful agent to find solutions to climate degradation that affects them. We partnered with a renowned architect, Yasmin Lari. She's an award-winning architect who designed low-carbon housing structures as well as low-carbon cooking stoves, so the chula. And these structures were then taken to the UK and presented at Granary Square in London. The structures were built live with women from very rural communities in Makli. So Makli is obviously in interior Sindh, and it's very prone to flooding and other climate catastrophes. So these women went all the way to the UK along with some students from Pakistan, and they built these structures there live. There were a lot of conversations that were also had between women from the UK and Pakistan about how we can collectively come together and, find other solutions like sustainable housing and how we can put architecture to use to combat climate change. Similarly, we in Pakistan kicked off the first national mentoring program for young aspiring female filmmakers. We did this with Sharmina Bechanoy, and after an 8-week-long mentoring program, these young women are now producing their first ever original work.
So almost 10 documentaries are going to come out, right?
So 5 documentaries. The 10 women are working in pairs of 2, and we ran an open call to select these women from across Pakistan. So the idea is to really, include women who come from socially and economically excluded communities in our country. That was also a very great experience. We had a meet and greet with the fellows where they showed us teasers of their films, and these are some very high quality works that are being produced. The films also respond to some of the challenges that women face globally and as well as locally. So there's themes of education, child marriage, transgender rights, the contemporary feminist movement in Pakistan. And yeah, so some amazing work happening.
And in addition to this, I think I'm going to move back to Maria too as well. So Maria, there's one more question which I wanted to ask. Obviously, Yusra has given us all the details of all the activities which have been taking place in the Pakistan-UK season. But the most interesting bit for me was, because I happen to host concerts and a lot of live events as well, that women were DJing for the most famous online streaming channels too as well. How did the concept came together, and how was it? Was it well received by people out there too as well? So please go ahead.
Women DJ, and that was actually a part of it. It materialized through a grant call that we did under the season. We called it New Perspectives, and one of the partnerships kind of worked together on a musical platform. And this partnership with Boiler Room kind of stemmed from that. And I think the highlight for that was the opportunity for these women to work with different musicians from different parts of the world, or in this case, the UK, and also to be able to curate their own pieces in a space, in Pakistan, in an environment where they're able to kind of share that skill set working with other people. And I think that there's a real beauty in that, because it's something I think that's quite new to our context in terms of women engagement in music. So yeah, I think it went down really well, and I think it was very well received.
And I think that's wonderful, when we talk about arts, culture, but now I'm going to come down to education too as well, where the universities are going to be linked in between this Pakistan-UK season, and they will kind of collaborate on curriculums as well. So how did that go, and how did it come about too as well, that this is something that we really need to share to be on the same page?
Right. So this one, when we were having conversations with people in the heritage sector across Pakistan, one of the things a common theme that came across was we want to be able to develop capacity build, but also develop some new forms of curriculum and toolkits that will help the heritage sector in Pakistan become self-reliant in many ways, but also kind of build within their own department, so they can look at things that they face and be able to address them themselves. So when that common theme struck out, we felt that, okay, this is an interesting opportunity for us to work with universities, because we're talking about education, we're talking about curriculum. So we actually launched an open call and asked for universities to put in proposals with a partner university in the UK. And as a result of that, we had numerous applications. And I wish we had more funding, but we had enough funding to support 8 partnerships. So we've actually developed 8 higher education partnerships who are now actively collaborating to work within the heritage sector, developing toolkits, developing trainings and curriculum. So we're being quite ambitious, and we're hoping that some of the outputs from those activities will be shared during the season. But this is a long-term program, so you'll see a lot of the results. And I think it's important for me just to quickly add, if I may, that most of our season programs have been designed that way. They are not one-off programs. They're designed to be sustainable so that the work and the legacy can carry on in Pakistan, of course, with the support of international partnerships.
I think it's really important. The support is definitely required, to kind of pull such a big thing off too as well. But in addition to that, when we talk about collaboration in terms of culture and art, while I was doing my research, I just came across that it's going to be 53 organizations and 29,000 people face to face. And that's how your project is spanning too as well. So how did that turn out?
It's been incredible, being able to partner more than 50 organizations between Pakistan and UK. To me, that's a huge success, and it's still growing. And I feel proud saying that. The numbers are still growing. And 29,000 face-to-face engagement, again, is still growing. We have our Lahore Biennial coming up. We're partnering with the Lahore Biennial to launch a virtual museum of Pakistan, working with 7 curators in Pakistan and the UK. So these numbers, they're still growing. And to me, that's a huge success story, because the whole point of having these programs is to have engagement, to be inclusive, so that people are able to access content, information, to better their own future employability skills, or whichever area they want to go into. I mean, whether it's for employability skills or whether it's just soft skills that they want to have, they have access to it through all these season programs. So yeah, the numbers are still growing, and I think that's great.
And obviously it's increasing because today it stands at 29,004 people, two of you and two of us. And yes, PTV, if we include that, it's going to be 54 organizations too as well. Yes,
right,
Hajra.
Right. So coming back to Yusra, so, we have seen, such a nice cross-pollination of ideas, between the UK and Pakistan in terms of arts, in terms of education, and not just that, also, the common challenges that, threatens us, for example, the climate change. And, UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, very aptly put it, this is now or never dash to save the Mother Earth. So what are the, other activities that are lined up, for such kind of initiatives?
Yes, so we have a very exciting lineup coming ahead. Right. At the end of this week, actually, we're presenting a symposium on research-based art practices. Wow. This is with so again, it's very diverse. There's a lot of, different moving parts and pieces that bring together the season. Yep. Right. So it also includes workshops, again, for capacity building of young artists, curators, in how they develop their curatorial voice and how they project their profiles. Then we have the LBF, the Lahore Biennale Foundation that Maria was mentioning. We're putting together a virtual museum. Yep. We have a lineup of some amazing curators. Sarmat Kusat is part of it. We have Ali Osman Kasmi and others who are bringing together a space where, conversations of shared heritage can be had on digital spaces, because that just gives you inclusivity of a different scale and impact. Right, then we have, on the UK side of things, a program with the UK Festivals Commission called Pollination. So designers from Pakistan actually collaborated with a designer in the UK to host a residency in Karachi earlier this year, and the costumes that they produced are now being showcased at the Pollinations Unboxed Commission. So that's mid-September, and finally, one of the bigger pieces that we're delivering is the Karachi Biennale. So we're obviously funding bits of it. We're funding 2 installations that are at the nexus of technology and art, and how those can be used to have the difficult conversations around mental health, climate, displacement.
I mean, I like the very idea that, that we have a mix of almost everything which is required in today's time. May it be research, may it be technology, and may it be art too as well. But how do you think that all of these activities has already or have impacted the lives of the peoples too as well?
So, I mean, of course, with projects like let's say the funding project that the filmmaking project that we've done, you wouldn't see impact beyond, obviously, women being upskilled, their capacities as filmmakers being increased right now, as in that's obviously an important bit of the bigger picture. But I feel like the impact really comes through in the longer term, where these women will become storytellers and will be able to tell stories of Pakistani women, will be able to represent us in big productions globally. So, I mean, look at Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. She's an award-winning film, and that's how she began. She also got this one opportunity that led her to do the great things that she's doing. So the hope is, the idea is that we're setting up these young people to really make it big by, sowing that initial seed through the season.
Wow, that's so lovely. And I think, so you've been talking so passionately about, all of these issues, the gender inequality, the climate change, and, upscaling the young people in Pakistan. And definitely, considering the fact that we are living in a very digitalized world, so it's very important, that we do get, digitally upscaled, especially when it comes to the youth. So I really wanted to ask you, what are the highlights that have touched you personally in all of this project?
So there are a few. I guess the Gender Ecologies program is, again, something that was very interesting and obviously very close to me. So, here we see a very indigenous community-led solution by women of Makli, who are what you would call the bottom of the pyramid in this country, who are absolutely socially and economically excluded. And along with the architect Yasmin Lari, these women were able to build something from absolutely sustainable materials like bamboo and lime brick. And this was a way to give themselves dignified housing, and but also it presents such an amazing solution to the world that was then taken to the UK, and it was very homegrown, very contextual to how it affects people in Makli, and it's now on the world.
This is something which is close to your heart.
Absolutely.
I think at this point of time, I really need to move back to Lahore too as well, where I really need to ask her whether what moved her, and what kind of was an activity that she loved the most or she liked the most too as well. So Maria, please let us know, what did you like the most?
I think for me, what stood out the most was that we were able, and this is a bit more of a general thing, that we were able to work with incredible partners like Scottish Documentary Institute, and we've mentioned other big names. But what struck out to me was that the opportunity was always for people from communities that were remote across Pakistan. And I think that narrative for me was the most powerful thing, meaning that we worked, yes, with Pataka Films, we worked with SDI, but it's the 10 women from different parts of Pakistan that hold, that had that impact in their lives. And just as Yusra said, we're hoping that they're going to go out and cascade and share that experience, share those stories. I think that's one of the key highlights for me. But in terms of like a specific moment, I think one thing that really struck out for me, and I'm going to say when we launched the season, there is this Pakistani Balochi rapper, Eva B. I'm sure you've heard of her. She is incredible. And when I saw her perform, it just made me feel like it was so powerful to see a woman, from Pakistan, get into rap at that level. I mean, I just thought it was incredible. I thought it was a beautiful moment. And for me, the whole notion of women engagement, because it's so important, because, now when you think of economy, when you think of all these bigger conversations, you need to have women engaged at all levels, be it music, be it, building a house, from bamboo, just as we did with the group for Yasmin Lari. So for me, I think these were some of the very key moments that struck out.
And these are key moments for us too as well. We're here at PT World talking about all of these wonderful initiatives, and that to UK-Pakistan season, which was launched back in March 2022. But okay, 2022, 8 months down the line, we have another 4 months. What can we expect when Pakistan turns to be 76 years old? And the relationship, this colossal relationship in between Pakistan and UK is strengthened in another year's form as well. What can we expect more in 2023?
I think with all the partnerships and nurturing that's happening, we can expect bigger, better, bolder. I feel that what we're going to get in the years to come is, you have youth engaged, you have conversations happening, and you're working together for a shared future. And I feel that if we stay on this path of collaboration and sharing knowledge and skills, you get bigger, better, bolder. And I think I can be very ambitious in terms of saying that we're gonna have some very interesting outputs from these programs in 2023 and beyond.
I think these words were put better rather than me asking you whether what's going to be your message for our viewers too as well. But if you still have a message, please go ahead.
I think the message for me would be this is a very precious moment. It's Pakistan's 75th. This country is beautiful. We should, value that, and we should take any opportunity we can to give back and to work together to better things for our communities. And if that starts happening with each other, and there's so much content, there's so much information because of the digital era that we live in, people can access information quickly. My message would be is use those digital platforms, access the things you need to, and build communities, build networks. Beautiful things come out of that. And I think that would be my message.
And now there's, one more thing which I would want to say over here, because, earlier, initially, that was a part of my job, but this is something personal. While I was going through your profile, you made me super proud for Mario, what you've done and achieved in your life too as well. from Canada to museums to, you know, everywhere all over the world. I think it was just so inspiring for me that I literally shared your profile with my sisters too as well, that hey, there are a lot of Wonder Women who are doing marvelous job all over the globe too as well. So kudos to you too as well. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Shazad. I really appreciate it. That means a lot.
Look after yourself. Thank you very much. And what about you? You want to say something?
I'm good, but yeah, just to echo what Maria has already
Sure.
mentioned, that we need to find solutions that are community-led, co-created with the people that they affect the most, because that's where the key to making meaningful change lies.
Wow, wonderful. And you've understood it at such a younger age too already. So I think, inshallah, in days to come, that's something which we are looking forward to. But ladies and gentlemen, I think there's one thing if we need to learn, and I'll be very dead honest about it too as well. You know, when I go to UK, the best thing which I get to see is that they're very punctual. They make sure that they're going to read books, you know, whether at a bus station, plane, wherever they are. And, you know, they're the nicest people, you know. And to be very honest, the very first time I still remember when I went to UK was in 2011 or 12. And, you know, so, you know, for the first 2 or 3 days, it was really difficult for me to understand their accent. So what I would do when I would go to a shop is I would take out all the money and give it to the shopkeeper, and he would just honestly take whatever was his, and that's it. You know, won't take a single penny extra. And then later on, I was like, hey, you know what? This is the country everybody should be talking about. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for the collaboration. Thank you very much, British Council. Look after yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, stay tuned. We're not going anywhere. We'll be right back. We have another something to discuss, and I think Haja is very interested in it too as well. Are you?
Yes,
yes, you are. I know it already. So we're heading out towards the short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thank you very much.
Welcome back. And earlier on we were talking about the cross-pollination of the ideas in terms of history, in terms of arts, in terms of collaboration with the education within the education sector, and I think that is how the cross-pollination of ideas gets out, and there is more sort of intellectual running of the engines. So we have a really fantastic guest today in the studio, who has her own book, and she happens to be the lecturer in the Quaid-e-Azam University. She happens to be Dr. Fawzia Farooq. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me here.
It's wonderful to have you.
Right, lovely to have you here. So, before having this conversation, we were behind the camera, we were having the conversation about, historicity of the film, and you were, sort of deconstructing the concept of, filmmaking, and, how there's a lot of propaganda instilled into the filmmaking, especially when it comes to the Hollywood and other film industries. So, you want to elaborate on that part of it? And
yes.
What does your research say?
Historical movies, historical dramas, they are a very sophisticated propaganda tool. And this is a time for soft power, cultural invasion. So these are the things that now we are listening to. So conquering another nation through culture, through our own values. So historical movies are a very powerful tool. Just to give you an example from England, in 1995 there was this movie Braveheart that started this idea of Scottish nationalism, and it actually had great impact on UK's politics. Scottish political landscape altogether changed, and we also know that it also brought a lot of tourism. So these historical movies, historical dramas, they are a great source or resource for a country. For example, just to give you a recent example, Tural, the resurrection of and the Turkish historical dramas, they have actually won the hearts of these Muslim countries. They actually look towards Turkey as a leader of the Muslim nation or the Muslim Brotherhood.
Or probably when we learn about the Ottoman Empire too as well, because before that, because it was visuals, it was easier for us to kind of look and then be entertained too as well. But if it was for us to read from a book, I think it would have been difficult.
And it was a very high production, film that was coming on, and they have, the sets there in the Turkey, especially, the same sets like they have for the Harry Potter film there, right? And it's a multi-billion franchise there, which is coming on there.
And I know a lot of family members who actually travel to see all of their sites too as well. But very quickly, I have a very smaller question. I had this question, and I've asked this question from Hajar just yesterday, and I think that you will be the perfect person to answer this question. And the question was that the history belongs to the victorious. Do you believe in that?
Yes, you rightly said it. There is this African proverb that says that until the let's
the lion starts to write, right?
Yeah, unless the
the hunter will be glorious. I think that's what he says.
Yes, exactly. So I think history is the history of victorious, but in the recent 50 years, there have been certain other kinds of histories, like history of common people, subaltern histories, and there are so many other kinds of histories that have emerged that actually talk about the vanquished, the common people.
That's true.
So, and the reason why, we were supposed to have a small answer.
No, it's all right. You can give us a longer answer too as well. It is for you.
The reason why you like these Turkish dramas is that they have actually constructed the medieval time in a sense that all the aesthetics, all the culture, everything has been created. So you probably might not be attracted to the hard facts, but the kind of life there was, the aesthetics, the beauty, the everyday life, maybe most of us are attracted to that.
Right. That's very lovely. And you talked about there are a lot of voices of subaltern communities which are coming up, and these conversations are actually led by the people within the third world countries, right, which are are actually, giving an alternative discourse to the very mainstream Eurocentric discourse that has always dominated our intellectual history, right, when it comes to that. So I believe that you have written a book also about it. Can you brief us about your book?
Yes. So my book is about power and religion in South Asia. So as all of us know that Muslims have ruled South Asia for quite a long period of time. So we wanted to see what
700 years, something like that?
Actually, an easy answer would be 1,000 years, but that depends on which area within South Asia are we talking about. So I have actually focused on behavioral and relational aspects of power, how relationships actually work, how power was sustained. So this was the idea, and why a group of certain 100,000 people were able to rule such a vast
so population. Why? I'm interested to know, why?
Effective use of power.
And which is why I'm going to stop you here as well. But a lot of people are watching us out there, and a lot of people are hungry for power too as well. What is the effective use of power?
Well, it's kind of a very Machiavellian and Cotelian interpretation. For South Asia, so for different areas there were different recipes, but for South Asia instability was a resource.
Instability.
And patronization, trust-based relationship within this instability were considered to be the resources through which power was sustained. And now this instability within the institutions, while it helped certain individuals to stay in power, but in the long run for institutions it was lethal.
And what were the tools used to instill instability when we talk about the South Asian region?
Well, there was
it religion?
Yes, there was religion was just one thing. So there was a certain kind of economic system, a certain kind of institutions, because land was the primary source of taxation. So how land was given, how tax was collected, how bureaucracy was operated. So these were mainly the tools through which instability was cultivated.
And still?
I think yes, I am certainly not denying that, we have seen some of, the darker times in that. And I believe that the name of your book is Muslim Rule in Medieval South Asia, Power and Religion in Delhi Sultanate, right? So, and a lot of times, the ideology through which the philosophy through which we are looking at this intellectual history is actually the liberalism when it comes to that, right?
She needs to answer that. She's still thinking if she agrees to it or not. Do you agree to that?
Okay, let me elaborate on this concept.
She's right, actually.
Yeah. So, because that is the dominant, Western ideology, that is in place, right? And I always deconstructed. So, I'm not denying that, that the Mughal Empire was always very good, but I do feel that there are a lot of good things, which are not focused enough. For example, let's analyze the role of transgenders, right? So before the British came in here and colonized us, they occupied very important positions in the imperial courts, in the harems, but when they came back, so they were, degraded to the very lowest of the low when it comes to that. And that status still persists in terms of that. And also, the colonialism is a sort of a legacy of the modern capitalist system when it comes to that, enslaving people, and then, that give birth to the racism, which is very much there. So why do you think, people are not focusing enough on looking beyond this very Eurocentric model? So, for example, you've used the term medieval South Asia, right? So medieval is a term that does not have a very good connotation in the European history, so they think that this is the period from 5th to 15th century, when they lost the Roman Empire, when they were in the darkness. I don't think so when it comes to the Muslim empire, they were that much medieval, because we contributed a lot to the global civilization in terms of that. Yeah. Do you agree with that assertion?
Actually, first, I'm extremely impressed.
Okay,
yeah,
you should be.
Because what you're pointing out is the lens through which I've studied this. Okay. And I'm really impressed because this is how usually it is done.
Right.
So you agree, right?
I don't actually
because it's the same lens, right?
I don't go into binaries like right or wrong.
Okay.
Or yes, because the epistemological model that we use is very European. Facts and positivism and empiricism. So yes, in a sense, but I will actually try to answer your question part by part. First is that medieval history, well, there were certain things that were there. So killing of a person is wrong, and it is wrong, right?
That's true.
So there are some objective facts. So yes, so that is first thing. When I was writing this book, so there were certain things that I had to take care of, and that was that I was coming from this environment, and somehow I had sympathy for my own somehow heritage. So it was not as Eurocentric, and I was actually not, I had no impulse to, you know, have this white man's burden type of a thing, and saying that there was a draconian and black medieval age. So medieval, just the term ancient, medieval, modern for historians is just a periodization. For Europeans, yes, the ancient history meant pre-Roman, and then the medieval time was I think even Europeans don't call it Dark Ages, but we actually think that they do. But yes, Ahde Wusta for Muslims was a period when they had this economic dominance, and when we're talking about Mughal Empire, it had 1/4 of the total GDP of the world, and it was contributing a lot to the world economy, and 1/4 of the world population was living in South Asia. So when I wrote this book, so I did not mean that economically or culturally they were backward. There are certain ways through which power is actually held by certain people. So that is just
those tools which we discussed too as well. I think I'm happy that you've said that too as well, but Hajra, you know, you made a point, and I think a lot of people, majority might agree with that too as well. But now what I really want to kind of come back to is that, you know, you for yourself, you know, have been a researcher, you know, you've done your doctorate too as well. You know, most of the time what happens is that, you know, I do see people either on the black side or the white side rather than being in the gray side too as well, right?
That's true.
You know, and the people I've seen most of the time within the gray side are the people who do some qualitative research rather than quantitative research. I think that's something which I'm going to come down to, and I'm going to give it to you as well. That for a researcher, you know, having both the windows open is something which they would like to have for their ease too as well. So, but one day you will certainly sit down with all of that work you have done and will be like, okay, you know, either I'm in the black or the white. So where are you?
Actually, I think I would stay in the grays.
This is what social sciences is about, actually.
Exactly. Social sciences is for the superior brain function of the society. We can't really go into, we're not doctors and engineers or lawyers. So I really cherish this art and culture and things which were really superior things.
That's so
and we're going to give it to you too as well.
That's lovely, you know, how people are actually here. They're cherishing art, they're cherishing the architecture and the history, and I think we need to work a lot when it comes to our history.
You have been working a lot.
Alhamdulillah. So, you know, I need to venture into the research sector more. So with that, we will end this segment. We will end this episode, and it was lovely to be in conversation with very lovely ladies. So until next time, it's a goodbye.
Bye. Good morning.